I was born in Dominica in the Caribbean, but I was brought up in Walthamstow in London, the East End of London, and my father was a carpenter builder, but was someone who was very politically aware and spoke about justice a lot. He used to be a policeman in the Caribbean, and law, I suppose, was very much part of who he was. So I didn't realise that at the time I was growing up. I can't say that I always wanted to be a lawyer. I in fact wanted to be a modern expression ballerina. But that was something that my father wouldn't countenance. So I had this burning desire to speak on behalf of other people. I was one of those, when I was a child, it's like a why bird. Why was this happening? Why was that happening? And I was always saying things that this wasn't fair and wasn't just. And I remember my father saying, well, what are you going to do about it? My father was the most amazing feminist, and I didn't realise that it was unusual for a man born in 1912 to believe absolutely in equality for women. And my mother was a very great woman with an indomitable spirit. So I saw equality at home, and I expected equality. It was normal for me, and my parents expected exactly the same for their daughters as they did for their sons. When I raised the fact that I wanted to be a lawyer at the Walthamstow High School for Girls, it was met with some shock, because it was felt that that wasn't a profession that would be open to a black girl coming from Walthamstow, because at that time the law was seen very much as a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male Oxbridge profession. And as you may notice, I don't appear to be any of those things. And so I was told that I had unrealistically high aspirations which were unlikely to be met, and therefore my advisor at school didn't want me to be disappointed. It's really quite extraordinary how for my whole life people have tried to help me to avoid disappointment, and therefore telling me I shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that. There was a pecking order, I was told at that stage, which went white male, black male, white female, and at the bottom of the pile was black female. And so I was told that there was no realistic prospect of me succeeding in the profession that I had chosen. And indeed, that since I worked at Sainsbury's at the weekend on Saturdays, had I thought of a long-term career at Sainsbury's, because if I worked extremely hard and applied myself, I might, in time, become a supervisor. The first piece of good luck was being taken on as this outdoor clerk and being able to taste the law and see. And I saw some great barristers, and they suggested that I should go to One Garden Court, which they sent a lot of work, and that I would go and see the senior clerk, Arthur Dorset. And Arthur was a terrifying figure to many people. I really liked him, though. Arthur called everybody sir, because he thought that was his idea of equality. So when he addressed female members of the bar, he'd call them sir as well. I remember him saying to me, the only reason, sir, that you don't go to court, sir, is if you're dead, sir. And if you're dead, sir, I'll come and knock on your coffin, sir, to make sure you're there, sir. Do you understand, sir? To which I said, yes, Arthur. I had a very broad common law practice, mainly civil, and I did everything. Company law, town and country planning a bit. I did a lot of work on issues of discrimination, employment law. But I think it changed when I started to do some of the public inquiries. I did Jasmine Beckford, Kimberly Carlisle. And then after doing the inquiries, I was seen more and more as a family child specialist. I did a lot on child abuse. I did a lot on international child abduction. And I became an international child abduction specialist at a time when it was really taking off. And many of the cases that I did became cases which were reported. I was passionate about equality. I was passionate about women. I did a huge amount on domestic violence. I remember the first time someone indicated to me that they thought I was Silk's material. I thought they were bonkers. I was about 7 years call, and the Recorder of London called me into his room to talk to me, and I was really worried because I'd been very robust. I'd never been rude, but I'd been very robust in my response in representing my client. So I thought actually I was going to get it in the neck, and he was calling me in to reprimand me for my overzealous representation of my client. And to my utter surprise, he called me in to congratulate me. And he asked me how many years call I was, and I told him I was 7. And he said, but that was a Silk's performance, and you are too young now, but you will be a Silk. And I came out dazed. I didn't think that that was something that was likely to happen to me. I was the first black woman to take Silk, and it was a surreal feeling, really, because I remember the beginning when basically people thought I wouldn't be able to have a career at all. I think the most important thing for me was that there weren't any professions in 1977 which were good for a black woman to be a member of. It wasn't as if I could say, well, if I was a cleaner, it would be a really good thing to be black and female. There weren't any careers. So I felt I might as well do this one. And I think the law is amazing. It's an amazing, amazing profession because it's honest, and it's a profession which supports as opposed to undermines integrity. And I think that's really extraordinary. I was always coming up with, I think you should do this, and I think you should do that. And one day, I sort of got hoisted by my own petard, and they said, I think you should. I'm like, no, not me. No, I don't want to be involved in Parliament. No, no, no. I want to advise others. And then it was sort of put up or shut up. And it was a good way in because I never thought that I'd be a minister. I was invited to come to the House of Lords. There was a new Labour government, loads of things that we wanted to change. We'd been knocking on the door about changing things in relation to, I don't know, domestic violence, adoption law, mental health. So now was the time to change the law. And I thought that I could, in good conscience, go to the House of Lords, as I was invited to, and I took a long time deciding whether I'd say yes or not. But I thought I'd be able to sit on the backbenches. I would be able to advocate the things that I would feel passionate about. I'd be able to stay in my profession. I would look after my 2 young children. I was able to bring in a pro bono panel in relation to human rights. I was able to introduce the International Criminal Courts Act. I was able to start the work we did on forced marriage to return children, and on international child abduction. The forced marriage unit I'm particularly proud of, because at that stage, when I went into the Foreign Office, we were not pursuing matters if there was a dual national. The idea was if you went back to the country of your other nationality, then the UK could not interfere. And I took the view that we should continue to support our nationals until someone stopped us. So we created the forced marriage unit, which has returned thousands of individuals to this country, and I'm very proud of being able to do that. And then as Criminal Justice Minister, we radically changed the way in which we delivered justice. We created the National Criminal Justice Board, the local criminal justice boards, the crime and disorder reduction partnerships, and we created a whole series of alliances to help those who had been in prison for rehabilitation. But I'm extraordinarily proud of what we did on domestic violence. I chaired the interministerial group on domestic violence. We were able to reduce domestic violence by 64%, and we saved 7.1 billion annually. And those aren't just figures, they are lives saved. What I was quite touched by, though, is that so many other people thought that I would be Attorney General, and that the newspapers, when you realise how far we've come, they said, firstly, Patricia Scotland has been made the Attorney General. And then a few days later, they went, oh, Patricia Scotland's a woman, and this is the first woman to have been made Attorney General. And then about a week later, they went, and she's black! Well, as Attorney General, I had the privilege of looking at the Bribery Act. We created the Attorney General's Youth Network. I created the Quintet, which is of 5 Attorneys General, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and ourselves. The reason I brought the Quintet together is whether we were talking about people trafficking, money laundering, terrorism, all these things had gone global. And our jurisprudence, therefore, needed to be in alignment. We were all facing and fighting the same things. And just as I saw in domestic violence and other areas, we don't succeed if we try to do it on our own. We have to reach out to others. We have to collaborate. And we have to be really clear that the bad guys are doing that. And so we wove our own web between our judiciary, between our officers, between our networks, because we had to be smarter. Because I think the globalization meant that it was no longer one person's problem, it was all of our problems. I serve 53 countries, which is 1/3 of humanity. It's 2.4 billion people, 60% of whom are under the age of 30. And our mandate is to deliver the Commonwealth Charter, which inculcates all the values that the 53 countries share. And at the moment, if you look at that charter, it really is the embodiment of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. In addition, it was the Commonwealth who first identified the need to concentrate on climate change because it poses an existential threat. You have 53 independent sovereign states who come together to deliver public good. And if you look at what happened last year when the Commonwealth heads of government came to London, it was a time of great political dissonance in our world. We couldn't get much agreement out of the G7. We couldn't get much agreement out of the G20. Those 53 leaders came together in the United Kingdom and they agreed on everything. And I think it's an example to the world as to what comity looks like. And it's not a post-imperialistic construct. It's actually a 22nd century construct in terms of what true comity could be. I'm as proud of being a lawyer as I have ever been, and it's those skills, that public service, which is actually inherent in those of us who love the law, that drives you to say, I want a better world. And that's something that you'll see deeply embedded in most lawyers, and also my total devotion for my whole career to pro bono. I used to say, and I still say, that at the heart of every good lawyer will be pro bono.